That's good. That's gone already.
Cream, meat lovers.
No, just cheese.
I know.
You know, cheese crossed my mind.
I don't usually do meat pizzas. It's weird. Yeah. Not like, if you get mushrooms, olives,
Pepperoni's been
onions,
a lot of money.
I eat that.
Yes, big man.
Not even supposed to be good.
You got an invite, didn't you?
Yeah, but I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is a presenting. The agenda says nothing. Well, always brief with the agenda that says the meeting starts and the meeting ends. And, that's nice. So am I supposed to present? Okay. There we go.
You could pick the
Me
pepperoni.
too.
I did.
Just like my kid.
Mhm.
Set myself. Good.
Yep. Just like that.
Should I sit here or steal in somebody's place?
No, that's where Leo's sitting.
That's, yeah, that's Leo's.
Sit over here where I can open it.
I might almost double back though.
Last time's good. You? Can't complain.
Got it?
I need to tell the fire department and the police department, thank you for saving my brother-in-law's life.
Al?
Everybody did exactly the right thing. People don't normally survive that. My son is in medical school, and he said, oh, that's like 1 in 1,000. So they have full arrest and they're not in the hospital. That just doesn't happen.
So it's here in Evansville?
Here in Evansville, they were out driving around, my wife and him, and they were out on Deer Creek and out of cell phone reach and all this kind of good stuff. They come back in town and she goes to drop him off at his house. He makes kind of a gurgling sound and he's done. So she gets out, slaps him a few times, gets no response, calls 911. Police were there within 30 seconds, she said. They let him out and got him down, started doing CPR. And I don't know if they shocked him or the fire department shocked him, but they showed up. Immediately after shocked him, and had him do a shot of epinephrine.
When was this one?
Pardon me?
When was it?
I'm gonna say 2 or 3 weeks ago.
On Williams.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
A burn permit tomorrow. Mhm. Okay.
You heard the call from
Full days you can. No heart damage, no.
Good.
Really?
Like a miracle.
It is. My son said he says he's never seen, he said he's seen hundreds of arrests like that.
Hi, guys.
He's never seen that.
Pizza back there.
Good.
So it couldn't have happened at a better time. People couldn't have done a better job. It's fantastic. Usually there's
Good.
sometimes pretty good.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Come on in.
Yours was
That's just
a bit of a small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have to call
full
them.
area tonight.
No worries. Survived the
I've been wondering how he was doing.
I know, because we get to hear the call and when they get to the hospital, we don't know what happens.
Right, exactly. They're here's how that comes out.
It's okay. Lexi, we don't either.
Right.
I know, because they asked you guys, hey, were they okay? And
Who knows? Once you got
Got
off
to
the
the
hospital,
hospital.
that's the end of it. Yeah, there's some good deal to get over the feedback every once in a while. Oh. That's cool, huh?
We like, yeah, as you said, we like those good stories.
I see ticket.
Yes, we do.
Couldn't be more live.
Okay. All right. So, apologize for the late in the year this go around. Usually we're a little ahead of this, but, just my fault. Your fault, that's right, it's your fault. You're sick. Just to give everybody a real quick overview, budget real quick, it looks like, we're in the positive here. So we've, everybody kept the budget's real slim to as close as it was last year, short of the pay increases and things like that we've instituted throughout this last year. Which basically, general overview, our proposed budget going in tonight is $4,224,078.56. Our anticipated revenue is $534,927, which actually leaves us a net positive of $310,848. Now, we do have a few capital expense asks this year, and I would be remiss if I did not mention, as the chief has brought to me over and over, they're not really asks, they're very necessary. So, but even if we were to institute all the capital expenses as requested, it would still leave us positive $217,848. Just want to kind of lay that out with everybody on the front end. There are some things coming up, salaries, wage increases, that we may look at pulling from that number. But as we go through these budgets to start with, that's where we're looking. So with that, I guess we can kind of jump right in. I don't know if you guys want to go over the revenue sheets. They're pretty standard, just updated with the numbers that Lexi's received. So. If anybody wants to dive into any of that or has any questions, I'm sure. Then I think we usually start with the court, since you guys are pretty simple, and then that way you don't have to stick around for the rest of the evening with us. So if everybody will jump on over to the court sheet. Judge,
If you look at the court sheets, the only increase that we have, we should just put in there, look under bank charges, it says that there wasn't any current actual, it said zero. Because actually, we had 2,000 budgeted, and to date for this year, it's 1,739 has been expended. So that justifies the $2,000 request again for this year. Everything else remains the same, with the exception of the jail fees. Jail fees have gone up, and we've also had a number of second-time DUIs, which are mandatory jail sentences, with second DUS is driving under suspension, which required mandatory jail time. And I think we even had a third time DUI, which required 30 days in jail, all in our at our cost. And so we had budgeted 20,000. To date, we have already exceeded that. We're at 20,100. We've had to put, some people have been, some youngsters have been remiss that they're not going to do anything, and they just keep pounding out the warrants on them, and they say, I don't care, I'm not going to pay. So one individual, we've had him, I sentenced him to 10 days, trying to send a message out, but so anyway, that's why the jail fees have gone up, and so we will just be requesting 30,000. Everything else stays the same. Anybody have any questions? Jeff?
The other item that went up, you'll notice, is just our maintenance service agreements, which is the software that we had to purchase this year to move off of the state. Other than that, I appreciate the judge and Vicky for putting everything together, and they're pretty right on.
Thank you.
So everybody else will notice as well, as we go through this, try to keep it relatively easy. But the first component, all the way down to the employee benefits of retirement, those are all just predetermined numbers that Lexi puts in there. Wages, Anybody got any questions for the court?
Thank you. All right.
So easy. Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Have a good evening,
Thanks
Judge.
for the pizza. See you guys.
See you, Vicky.
I might. You guys too. No, I'm good, Justin. He's waiting. Okay. Thank you, though. Thank you.
All right. So next up, everybody have any desire to go first? Sure. See how far in. Give me those nice pages and I've already got pizza on.
It's a motorcycle.
Oh,
It's mostly- I like it.
Okay. I know.
Neat skylights.
All right. So
That's a good number. Oh.
to the water treatment plant for June.
I'll be in the enterprise.
Second page.
I'm just as new to this as you are. Do you need a pen?
We have two new budget, keep those budget sessions. Robert.
Yes, this is, Daisha gets to be on town council and go right into budgets.
Yeah, immediately.
Be grateful that it's not like it used to be.
This would be the first of 4 sessions.
It's like 1 in the morning.
So if I walk home from Taylor's, is that still a deal?
It's a public.
We're not having our budget meeting. All right, so, water treatment, again, pretty benign. Jim, you want to
Yeah,
give us a quick breakdown?
we kind of went over everything, and I think the review added to wages and salaries on the theory that we can get another guy.
Yes, so,
So that's,
sorry, as soon as I shove a piece in my mouth.
I want to put you on the spot as soon as we take a bite.
So, I don't know if everybody's aware, but we've been running the water plant for 3 years now on a 2-man crew. So through the wintertime, not that big a deal. Jim and Chuck keep the plant operating when water demand is low, able to keep them to decent hours. In the summertime, when our demand kicks up, these guys run 24/7 in a 2-man crew. So they're really burning the candle at both ends. So one of the things we had started, we put in this year's budget to bring in a part-time person to start training and learning the system and alleviate them. And then I want to continue that. So Jim and Robert are going to go and put out a position and we're going to advertise all of that. And then I asked Lexi to add in that 3rd position as full-time for this next budget cycle. I'm personally just a little concerned running 2 guys, and hats off to you guys. They kept it up and running the whole time. And but you got things like, well, heck, the last couple of years from COVID, things like that. We just we pounded through it, but I'd rather us have some backups that they can rely on. So that's why you're seeing that increase there, is to add a 3rd person to the plant operation.
Make things safer, just somebody can take a vacation. maybe.
Yeah. And literally, Jim will be putting in 70-hour weeks here in the summer. So,
Once people start watering their lawns, it just about doubles the consumption. We agree. Come on. It's good. Yeah, just had a power failure plant today.
Were you affected by that outage?
Oh, yeah. And I don't think they really have figured out what it was. It's working again, self-corrected cause of none. I hate that sort of thing. Because you know it's gonna happen again.
Figure it out.
another notable thing you'll notice in here is we had some savings this year. Professional services is a really big one that stands out to most everybody. So we had last year budgeted to do some work on our tanks. Our tanks are needing recoated. So without doing the proper due diligence and really getting deep into what that was gonna cost, we threw $100,000 into this year's budget to perform that function. Come to find out, we were not close. So with the recent bid for Casper that went out, we anticipated that that number was not going to be sufficient to coat those tanks. So right now we have, Jim is entering an agreement with Divers to go into our tanks here over the next couple of months, inspect them, and do some basic repairs, structural around Jim, welding, things like that to shore them up.
Grind it and put epoxy on underwater.
So we're gonna have that done while we're going out to look for some help in getting these tanks coated. Shane and I met last week about applying to the state for some grant opportunities to help us with that. After Casper's bid, we went back and looked at it with Shane, and we were only off by about $900,000.
We were really close.
So instead of 100,000, it ends up to be looking closer to $1 million, which is why you see that difference there. So with that, you'll notice a few other items that we're under, and that's because we've got some outstanding things that Jim is working on currently, some tools, very expensive tools for the water plant that he'll be bringing in. So that number, our current year expenditures, anticipated to rise with those expenditures.
Really, there's nothing shocking coming up. We talked about doing a few things that had getting done on this year's. It's all in process, and tank people are going to be here theoretically. They're going to be here June and July. So
Okay, great.
we can try to work in this area. Travel money, and all that kind of stuff. Looking at these furnaces and getting them done. We're still waiting for bids on some of this. Air compressor for Brian Stock Trail. I still haven't heard back from the guy with Ingersoll Rand, but just looking them up in Granger, if we could just go buy one. The fanciest one that I can see that is, would do what we want is like 18,000. And then we'd have to have electricians come in and so we have to turn the thing in, put it in and out and all that. Because it's a heavy thing out with the cranes, we can go out there. I think under 30,000, I'm sure that's something that.
So what Jim's got there is our water draw pump house. Has a compressor in there to allow the line. It's pretty old. It's got some issues, things blowing in the air, ventilation, a couple of trees around it that are causing continual maintenance on that device. So Jim's looking at getting that pump replaced, something newer, up to date. And then the heaters he talked about, we've got a single point of failure for the heating system down there at the water plant, which also is aging. So these are some basically like garage type
Right, just unit heaters and
gas heaters.
So if we have a couple of those in here, that goes back up for that fancy.
case we have
big phase, we
issues there, and then of course the tools that I had mentioned. So
can do that.
any questions regarding the water plant? So I started off with giving you guys that breakdown of our total budget and revenue expenditures, and that was on the general government side. I apologize, I didn't even mention the enterprise side. So the enterprise side of this are water distribution, sanitation, wastewater, and water treatment plant.
Yeah, you're fine.
Those are the operations that we basically make our money off of services we provide to the town. So those four departments anticipated budget is $1,540,673.91. Anticipated revenue is $1,749,630, leaving us a net revenue gain of $208,906. So I'm sure you're all aware of the increase in cost you received at your houses with both sanitation and water that Casper has enacted this year. Because we are doing well, we're not going to have to ask our citizens to increase their rate. the town's able to absorb those increased costs and stick with the budget.
Those of us that live in Casper know how much your water rates have gone up.
Garbage.
Sanitation.
Yeah, I think there was a 28% increase on both sides of that, so. So luckily, the way we had set up our structure, we were able to meet that, those increases and still provide a little bit of leftover for put in the bank. All right, anybody have any other questions for Jim? All right, you're off the hook, man.
Like I spent to have some
Yes, you do.
Little conversation.
last down in here, man. Sneak out.
All right, thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Appreciate all you guys. Thank you.
I think it quit raining momentarily, so.
We're supposed to get it later this week though. 5 inches of snow on the mountain. So don't get used to the springtime, I guess. That's good for us though. We use less water. We have less demand, so that's a good thing.
All right,
All right, take it easy.
thanks, Jim, appreciate it.
See ya.
You guys got some side thing going on over here?
No, Mayor.
All right, so we just finished the enterprise?
Right, well,
Okay. So should we go to the wastewater? That's why we couldn't figure we got one right now. So Robert has many departments for us to go through, so. I'm trying to think, and Robert's, I don't think we had much
not for
alter
wastewater.
on
no.
here, so.
Wastewater is pretty much the same as it was last year.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but we were, is there something we were upgrading? It was all water distribution, wasn't
Yeah, water distribution streets.
it? Okay, so we didn't have anything, any new additions to the wastewater side?
Not this year, no.
I guess anybody have any questions on for Robert on wastewater? You'll see that we're under a substantial amount on 201 sewer charges. That's just because billing's behind. So that will catch up. I can't think of anything else notable, really. Okay. If somebody has any other questions for Robert on wastewater? How about we move on to distribution?
Distribution, everything's pretty well the same. I am requesting some more meters, our smart read boxes, which is our radio reads, how we can get the meter read. Some more meter pits, so we can continue on with replacing some of our aging infrastructure.
Just so for everybody's edification, we started last year with proactively replacing some of this equipment rather than being reactive to it. A lot of times meter pits, some of the valves and things like that, we were constantly in a reactive state. We'd go out, especially in the winter time, something would break. It's been aging, see signs of stress. So what Robert's been trying to do here with these asks is continue a project we started last year where we're proactively getting ahead of that. They have an anticipated life. And rather than us just wait for them to go kaboom, we're taking the oldest ones and starting to do some replacements so that we can hopefully prevent those types of disasters from happening.
And with these styles of meter pits, it'll actually reduce some of our late hour calls. Because the meter pits we have in the ground right now, the meters are still pretty close to the ground with just an access lid on it. These new style pits keep the meter at the bottom of the meter pit and you can pull it up to the top to work on it. So it'll keep your meters warm and it'll help reduce freeze damaging.
I'm personally very supportive of the proactive stance. I think it helps us fish support as well as our citizens in having to deal with those catastrophes that pop up, especially in sub-zero temperatures. So I guess, any questions for Robert on distribution? Sanitation?
Sanitation is, I've got another ask. I'd like to get a new piece of equipment called a brake press. And what that will enable us to do is rather than purchasing new 3-yard and 1.5 bins at a substantial cost, not only to purchase the bin, but shipping, this brake press will allow us to replace the bottoms and repair some of the existing ones with minimal cost.
Remind me, Robert, what was our anticipated fix versus new? You say you could fix 10 of them for every one we buy?
One moment, I will pull up that document and let you know.
That's
So I think that's.
It was significant. I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
that. It was
So-
significant.
You know, you've all got to see the big metal dumpsters out there and they're rusting and handles coming off the sides. In the past, we've just basically replaced them. Robert's pretty confident that with this piece of equipment and the sheet metal we're looking at, that they can do substantial repairs. And he's even really going on a limb and thinking that potentially they'd be able to produce 4-yard bins around here.
Possibly.
Possibly. So we'll.
We'll play with that before I say
As I told
definitely.
Robert, the repair component is significant enough in the town that if that comes along, great. If not, I'm more than happy with.
So the piece of equipment I'm requesting to purchase is around $10,000. The last time we purchased 3-yard bins, we purchased 6 of them, and it was for $9,900.
And that's just the initial investment for the equipment. You can see here, when we actually get into the sheet metal, how many bins would that sheet metal repair?
I'm looking at that right now. So we'd be able to get our ROI after 13 bins have been completed. And I'm figuring we could probably fix about 20 bins total.
Seems like a no-brainer to me. Yeah, I would about die when I found out how expensive those things were. It's a metal square.
Literally, yeah.
Be relying heavily on our welders.
And I mean, it really, if we can double the life of these things, that's a
Well,
significant.
Gordon Shore and Walters call me, pick them up.
So can most of them.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot.
Yeah, just a little spot.
That's
for
what I did in
candles
the
fall
Army.
out.
Went to the Army Welding School in Aberdeen, Maryland.
And hopefully the price of sheet metal doesn't go up too much more.
That's a big cost. So, has that been going up also? Has that been the number that's going up?
If it's something that I've purchased, I've noticed it's gone up 5% since October.
So you'll notice with everybody's budget, a lot of the minor increases we've got are just cost of goods. Just
Well, that's why, yeah, that's
so hard to get stuff. So
Any questions for sanitation?
that's why I'm particularly proud of this budget, because we have provided all the employees raises this last October, and we've absorbed these additional costs, and we're still going to be the black.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess that pretty much knocks out enterprise funds. Unless anybody has any questions on the revenue side. All right. I got pizza on papers and.
It's magic.
It is, but this is everywhere. Anybody next? Yep, but PW, yeah. We'll finish it up.
Then I'll volunteer, might as well. So then I'll volunteer, might as well.
We got some
I might be able to get it.
PWs to go through. So we'll start with PW General.
So a lot of my budgets, I've been playing it safe, being that this is my first time around. That basically what I did was I went through and I compared prior years, so where we're currently sitting and what was budgeted for last year.
So you'll notice some of the lines that are underexpended this year. Just due to the fact that those items haven't popped up. Repairs and maintenance for the building. I know last year we had snowstorms that busted our roof and doors multiple occasions. Fingers crossed, haven't seen that this year. So some of those items are underspent. But I'm really comfortable with carrying those numbers over for next year because we never know when those items might pop up. And as you can tell from this expense report, Robert's really good about not spending out of there unless it's necessary. So that's why you'll see some of those are currently underspent, but we're still keeping a significant amount in the budget for unanticipated expenses that may pop up.
We haven't gotten an email from you lately, so.
Oh, you'll be getting one at the end of the month.
Uh-oh, we have public.
Oh.
I did have a bit of,
I heard the door and I'm like.
we did have a bit of an adventure on Friday night. We had a water main break. So that was entertaining. Over there off Yellowstone Highway in Blackmore, right across from Sinclair.
Wow.
So was that newer?
That's why the hole was in the ground off the side of the 2026
What happened?
water main break.
Was it 2 years ago that they put it in or 3?
3.
3.
It's the second time we've had to repair that line.
Really?
Yes. First time was due to contractor damage, and this time, I think, is just a case of overbelling. I'm not sure yet. I haven't gotten the pipe apart yet.
Keep us informed. Do we have anything else in notable in PW General? I can recall. Do you have any questions for Robert? Public Works General? Let's go to streets and alleys. I know we got something in this one.
Everything I had in this one, I'm getting this budget cycle.
Yes, but we'll want to explain that.
Okay. So we've got some material in that we need to acquire, such as dolomite, road base, sand, things of that nature, roto mill, help work on alleys. We're going to stockpile on some of that stuff, and we're looking at obtaining a new roller. The roller that we have currently is aging and getting towards its last legs.
And that's why you'll notice some of the lines underspent in the streets and alleys. Of course, a large expenditure right now for fixing potholes in the street repairs. And my understanding from talking to Robert and the guys is the current roller for street repairs is they stand on one foot and touch your nose, try to start it. Hopefully it'll go. I believe there was 1 or 2 occasions last year where it was out of commission. The guys had to go in, do repairs before we could fix the potholes in the streets. So hopefully we can do it.
Can I get you a large one or small one?
About the same size of what we have currently. So it's designed to work parking lots primarily.
Okay.
So it's not one of those big
Right.
massive production
Mhm.
rollers. It's your standard government smaller roller.
Yep.
And it is out for bid currently. So we should be seeing bids coming here shortly, and then we'll put that on the council meeting for council Wash my napkin. You know I need that. So any questions on streets and alleys? Guys have been out diligently fixing potholes. So hopefully proceeding around town.
Depending on what the storm does, we'll be out tomorrow too.
I have a question. So over here this morning in the little park that's next to the recycle bins, I don't know if like there was a sprinkler head that flown wrong with it, that was completely flooded this morning.
They may be overwatering. I'll have my parks guy look into it
Yeah,
tomorrow.
because I stopped to recycle, and it was just a huge puddle, like half of where the newspapers and stuff are, and it went all out to the street.
All right, thank you for the information.
Yeah,
I'll
I was gonna
have a
call
look at it.
and I forgot. Like, oh, here's the way to bring it up.
I'll see everybody's here.
Right?
All right, go ahead. I think I asked her. Go on the parks. Everybody will notice, of course, we're underexpended on some of this, but we just started watering.
And I just got 2 shelters.
Yes, so if everybody remembers, we had the safety hazard shelter down in Reshaw Park last fall. So we asked for that to be taken down, rid of the hazard. Take away 1, build 2. So Robert got the materials recently to build 2 shelters down in Reshaw Park. And also we have a planting cleanup day coming up this weekend, which
Hopefully.
according to the weather sounds miserable. It is what it is.
Saturday it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to clear up now. It was a few days ago, it was yucky out there. So Robert is going to get a good amount of flowers and things to help the town come out and plant around our parks and flower beds and have a hand in it. And we're gonna go out and do some cleanup on 2026. So I also spoke to the landfill superintendent today, Cindy Langston, who expressed her thanks for the police department, the gentleman that pulled her over late at night for a taillight again. And yes, so she actually got one of your very first taillight fixes.
I got one.
And now evidently the other light went out. So she got pulled over again, but as in both
She's
times.
just gonna drive around and someone pulls her over.
She commented about how courteous the officers were, and nice after they had stopped her. I did mention that perhaps some of the bumpiness on the road might have caused her taillight. Well, that remains to be seen. But she's going to come join us Saturday for cleanup day. And she's also offered they're having labor shortages up there. But when they do get staffed, to also help us patrol Memorial Way. So, that was good. So I do all the talking. Thank you, Dad.
I got irrigation going in at the walking path here shortly.
Oh, did the parts come in?
Yes, we got the last part today.
Great.
So probably not this month, but starting into next, we'll start the irrigation for the walking path between Copper and VA.
I think that'll be a really nice addition. Green up the area.
And it will keep the fire hazard.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, and so kudos to Robert and the crew. So they did anticipate potentially council's desire to extend those watering sections. So they are making the opportunity at the end. It's got a place to connect onto if we want to continue to do the next section. So
Would that be Copper to Flat Park,
Yes.
the other section?
And then the other way is a little trickier because we have the road,
Right.
but Robert assured me we can still make it happen.
It'll look really nice when it's green.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Parks? All right, moving right along. Well, Robert, you're welcome to stay or you're free to go.
All right, well, as usual, anything comes up, I'll let
All right, thanks, sir.
Ask him twice. He's out.
Yeah, I just noticed.
All right, so next on the list is fire.
Fire. So, personnel stuff pretty much stayed the same outside of raises and changes in percentages. You'll see a $12,000 increase under registrations for the college internship program that Chief Cornett set up. That should cover our interns for the next fiscal year. As far as other notable changes from what I've already been doing, I would say I obviously upped gasoline and diesel with the current status of our country. I didn't double it, but I did add some. So as far as that goes outside of capital purchases and, well, I guess one other thing, if you go to the very back page of the one I do, the printout with the green highlights on it, the very back page of that one. So all of the things at the bottom of that were actually in my proposed next budget, and we were able to purchase all that out of this budget because we had some money left over that the mayor and I found. So since we have newer council members, our structure helmets are good for 10 years. We're reaching the time where we have to start replacing those. We bought 10 this year. We'll probably do another 10 next year, and then we should be down to like 5 or 6 probably until they reach their retirement age. The replacement bunkers, that's the biggest one. Well, not the biggest, the second biggest one on there. Many years ago, instead of trying to buy 30 sets of bunker gear all at once, because they also have a 10-year life, whether they're used or not, they can only have them for 10 years and then they have to go away. The previous mayors and councils, we've been doing this 5-year replacement or 5 per year replacement. So we don't ever run into the situation where we have to buy 30 sets of bunker gear at one time. So right now our bunker gear is actually looking pretty good. I know I have 3 for sure that I have to replace this year, and then I'll have the other 2 sets in the budget, provided new guys coming in, because that's the other side of it. We have to make sure we buy gear that fits them, because if it doesn't fit them and then they get hurt, we're liable for that. And then I would say the biggest thing in there is going to be the new command vehicle for Chief Cornett. Historically, the town has never allowed us to purchase new vehicles. They've always been used. We've got some good ones and we've got some not so good ones. The red Yukon that's out there, that vehicle, that was one of the best used vehicles we ever bought. The truck we bought a few years ago for him is not in the same breath. After speaking with the mayor, you can get a new vehicle for the same price as a used vehicle right now. So yeah, it's pretty close to being cheaper. So, right. And then it comes with a warranty, and then we shouldn't run into this flipping the coin as to what kind of used vehicle we're getting for that type of position. Chief Cornett and Janelle have already we're taking bids provided all of this gets approved, but we did put out to bid out a brand new one. And then after we add lights and sirens and radios and stickers and all of that, we're hoping to keep it right around that $65,000 mark. But a brand new vehicle was pretty close to what we could get a used vehicle for. So actually it might even been cheaper than some of the used vehicles I looked at. So these are,
Advertising that.
it's out for advertisement right now,
That'll be visited before you guys the 15th of June.
provided all this goes as planned. But so I actually had all this stuff in my budget, and then when I sat down with the mayor, a lot of these things, he wanted moved to capital purchases because they're essentially one-time purchases. So my annual budget outside of the capital is very similar to this current year's. It's about I think a 60,000 give or take difference. And like I said, most of that accounted for with in personnel, just with benefits and then the internship program, so that we can continue to support that internship and have the firefighters at the station with the full-time guys. So, which has been going really good right now. So we're having really good luck with that right at the moment. So outside of that, yeah, it was a little bit higher, and then obviously the capital purchases are important. So, but that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Unless you guys got questions, I try and keep it simple.
You don't have any questions about the truck?
I don't have any questions about the truck. You know,
I was just gonna say, was it a truck or an SUV? But I'm like,
I was gonna say, I'm just glad that, you know,
and you'll be able to put all of your equipment you need in there.
Councilman Scott had to move Mark's command on a call and understands what he's dealing with currently.
He brought it up to me before I brought it up to anybody else. I was like, no, we can get a couple more years. He's like,
They
No
prefer
reason-
The pickup because they can put the shell on the back and keep their stuff out of the vehicle.
so you can keep the carcinogens out of the cap, so you can separate that.
We don't want all of our wildland or structural firefighting gear in the cap with us, because they off gas. What they're showing now is they off gas a lot more than we thought they did. So,
I just want to make sure that you get there if I need help.
well, there is that too.
So far, it's been
My Mark might be running and go.
Those were additional thoughts to take into consideration when we really talked about the truck and used. I mean, I think you're probably at this point, we're gonna be in the 50,000-60,000 mile range in order to get something in there.
or 90
Right.
to 100, yeah.
Yeah, and the way these guys use them and the criticality of it just didn't make sense. You know, I think we're probably talking a $10,000 difference.
It was 10 to 12 is what I found out.
So, to me, I'd rather get them something that lasts.
Hey,
And
weird question.
I think the warranties are important as well. I mean,
Yeah, yes.
brand new vehicle, it's gonna come with whatever the standard warranties are, so that should also give us a sense of security that if something does happen to it, at least most of the time it's gonna be covered.
Yeah, like the stuff, you know, like your stuff, like inside your stuff, like your, that kind of stuff.
Computers,
Do you take it out of your old one into your new one?
yeah, so his vehicle, his lights are actually new enough on that used vehicle. We shouldn't have to buy brand new lights. We will have to get a console, just because the new vehicle will be different than that. But the lights and sirens, and the radios, they'll be able to take out of that one and put in the new one. We'll just need a new console.
Maybe, might fit.
It might fit. I doubt it though, just because of the way vehicles fit, but there'll be quite a bit off of that. Well, and then the slide out in the bed, we can take that apart and we'll put that in the bed of the new truck. And we did find out with the new vehicles though, we'll have to buy the camper shell and then have it painted, because they will not build a new vehicle with a camper shell. None of the manufacturers told us
Yeah,
they
they
would do that.
They don't
So,
deliver them. They'll
that's
set
part
it
of
up.
that.
They'll set it up and put it on if we want. I was like, oh, we can do that.
So we're gonna try and actually reuse literally as much as we can out of that one, outside of a console and stickers. And then maybe some little things, but I don't think there's any major components we won't be able to use.
After you're done with your current one, do we send it to auction? Do we?
They go out to auction. They go on the town's,
Public surplus.
yeah, so it'll go out to auction after that. And we're hopefully trying to keep it running until then, so that it's,
Oh, it's going to keep it right.
so it gets more at auction,
Yes. You can see the fruits of the labor.
right?
I can start driving the other one if you want. So far, it's doing all right.
Yeah, we got it back up.
Everything that you guys do, so whatever we can do to help you out.
Any other
Any
questions?
questions?
All right. Yeah, you're free to go.
I got a 12-hour day tomorrow, so.
Yeah, you have a.
I suppose.
So is everybody, I guess before we move on,
Wait a minute. Are you really here or is it still?
He responded to my invite.
Okay.
Everybody else clicks accept and I get here and it says tentative. I'm like, Michael, what does this mean? Yeah.
so before we jump off of fire. Does anybody have any questions also about the capital asks?
No, I think it's standard needs.
Absolutely.
So the thought process behind that is, so we have our sales tax revenue, a good portion of our income, then we have the optional 1 cent to pay sales tax. Traditionally, what you want to do is have that stuff separated from your operational budget. So utilize that for projects, one-time expenses, things like that. So this is our attempt to start kind of heading that direction. So all our gifts and revenues are around $700,000. We have about $100,000 capital expense. Trying to take us towards that, but that's why that's separate of capital expense.
I just like the fact that it's spreading out instead of doing like, I don't know, 30 bunker gear, whatever, helmets all once, just do 5 or so.
Because you'd be looking
Spread
at
it out.
$200,000 or $300,000 to do that.
Well, and it's,
I mean, it's, you know, we can do that.
yeah, it's next to impossible for us to anticipate that we've got these up and down roads.
So, no, that's I'm getting.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Thompson?
So when you're looking at this, blue on the line, got the same color. All right, blue's increases, tan is a decrease from prior year. So at the beginning, the salaries, benefit stuff outside of workman's comp increases. A lot of that's due to step pay increases that's in the policy. We have a 5-year step plan. So we have several employees, or about, well, a little more than half the department's eligible for step pays at this point. Workman's comp, because we didn't have a bunch of injuries in workman's comp, is why it went down. So that's kind of cool.
On our audit.
Or in the audit.
That's a discount.
All right, so that was a good thing. And then 160 through 220 is pretty much status quo from the prior year. 230, which is lodging and meals and training, I decreased it significantly. So when you look at the year prior, kind of speculative of what would get spent, we didn't spend as much as I initially thought. So in trying to keep a status quo and adjust for any of the increases, we decreased that. We'll still have some out of area training, and that's where lodging and meals for you newer council lady on the council. Office supplies, I think that's the same, or no, I upped that just a little bit. Why it's not blue. Anyways, mostly due to the rising costs of products that we're all seeing right now. Printing, left that the same. Safety equipment uniforms left the same. Telephone. So telephone is the data that goes to our MDTs and our patrol units, and that's what that is. So it says telephone, but that's really data. That should stay pretty much standard with AT&T FirstNet. So I don't see huge changes there. I decreased the postage line. I thought we were going to spend a little more with some certified letters and stuff with nuisance issues going out. But Brandy's done a really good job about communicating with people and getting them the notices. So I backed it off to 500. First aid and supplies, left that the same. We're a little bit over right now. We had a couple CPR paddles we've had to replace throughout the year. from being used and stuff. But 1,800 seems to be pretty status quo for that. Professional services, we're definitely over budget this year, but I did back it down to 2,000, and that's going to cover basically like psyche evals for applicants and that kind of stuff. The reason it's so high in the current one is we were using an outside source for our background investigations because we were shorthanded. We've now taken that back over as we've implemented CVSA and the TLO function for investigations and background checks. So that brings that back on our end, so we don't need as much money in there. I've only got one position right now, and then we'll have one more potentially in September as far as officer wise that we're dealing with. It'll affect this line. So 2,000 may actually be more than we need, but vehicle expenses, I upped that a little bit. Initially budgeted 17. We were definitely over budget this year. So I upped it to 20, not quite what we've spent, hoping that maybe we've gotten through a bunch of the stuff that we dealt with, so we don't have to repeat all that. I just sent out another email reminding everybody to limit their idle time. Most of them are doing a pretty good job about excessive idling and not having it. I got 2 guys that struggle with it, but I'm going to crack the whip pretty hard on them at this point because your idle time, you burn about a half a gallon per hour. So if one person does an hour's worth of excessive idling just through a day, that's $430 some a year, give or take your fuel prices. So if all 13 of us that have cars did that, it's like $5,800 a year, give or take the fuel prices. So in the current market of fuel, that's $5,800, not including any of the wear and tear that it puts on, which they speculate 40 miles to the odometer in wear and tear for an hour of idle time. So for every hour you idle, it's worth 40 miles wear and tear. But it's definitely something we've significantly improved on over the years. But keep working on that. So gasoline, obviously, like everybody else, we up that line. Our world, we have 2 choices. We can either be a reactive agency, which then allows a spike in crime because when you're not proactive, they see that institutes that, then we're responding. Janelle, I've had her start printing me off the fuel bills. Sorry. And it's been interesting to see, like we were $3.10 a gallon, when we started this process last year at this time, and now we're $4.20, if not higher, depending on where you go. So I know the speculations for the summer is that it's going to keep doing this, potentially $7 fuel, which that would be bad. But the one thing, on our end, I don't want to be a reactive agency. We've done pretty well at pushing the criminals out. So I want to keep doing the proactivity. Equipment expense, I think we have that just a hair in this booklet. The mayor already has this, but if you go through here, you'll notice one of the reasons that went up a little bit. So just as a educational thing. So every year we buy and replace the ammunition we use to train with, et cetera. And then every so often you have to replace your duty rounds. So the first quote is what I got 3/14 of this year, which is $12,221. And the second quote is what we purchased in 8/20 of 21. It's the same exact order, $9,905. So there's a $2,100 increase just in the ammunition. So I just put that in here so you guys can kind of see, where some of these increases are coming from when I talk about it in the budget for equipment and different things. In equipment, so past the ammunition line is just a rendering. So we use NARC kits, which are the field test kits for those of you not familiar with, out on the street to test any of the narcotics and controlled substance we come across. These are the current prices, which this book is about 2 years old that I pulled this out of. So I already know that these prices are higher because I don't have the new book in hand. But just as an example, this is some of the stuff that we buy through that line for evidence processing and having some like evidence bags is the next one. So you can see the old prices, so they're gonna go up. So when you see that equipment line, that's why there's some increases in there. Vehicle licenses, that's just for our vehicles and stuff. Speaking of, before I forget, the undercover car, he said the tags I think are expired. I'll look into that, but squirrel moment, sorry. He mentioned that the other day.
That's funny, because that's always on my calendar to remind me every year, to remind me this year.
Yeah, he mentioned it to me the other day, and I was going to mention it to you, and so since I'm talking about it, yeah, he just wants to be like all the other people are. So talking about that cued me to remind me to tell you that. Miscellaneous, that line's pretty much for all those things that you don't expect to come up, broken flashlights or replacement of body cams if something breaks, or just the little things that, as much as we try to plan for our budgets, there's just some things you can't plan for. Jail fees, we definitely upped that one. So last year I decreased it because of the year prior. Looking, trying to keep it within that conservative scope of, okay, this is what we spent. We're going to be somewhere in this. Well, last year this year we've been exceptionally busy. And we've had a lot of people going to jail. So we're over that line.
Just take them to the woodshed.
Yeah, kidding. So we're going to be over quite a bit more just from the last printout there. So that's why I upped that. Plus, there was an increase in the sheriff's office. We went from like $103 a day to $137 a day. So that's a significant jump. I'm actually going to, at some point, reach out to some of our legislatures. So statutorily, if Leo has a $1,500 fine, and some people want to kill their time, as they call it, or kill the number, so they just want to sit it out in jail, statutorily, it's only worth $15 a day. So if he's a $1,500 fine, and we put him in jail at $15 a day, it costs the town $13,000 some freaking dollars for them to kill that time. So the statutes have not kept up with the jail fees. And it's kind of weird because some counties jail fees are $80. Here it's $137. Not sure what that's about, but that's, it's our home county. So we got to deal with that. So I'm going to talk to some of the legislator folks as we have legislation come up next year that maybe they need to be looking at that statute and change that a little bit, because that could help offset not just our particular budget, but also the courts that was here earlier, because when they sentence people to jail, that could help that. So a little background there. PSCC is dispatch. Again, I lowered it coming into this budget, looking at the prior year, saying, okay, let's try to stay in that number. And with our 76% increase in calls, well, we're over budget. So I upped that. The number I put in there is what's speculative by the end of this year. It's hard to say what calls we will or won't have between the next month and a half. So 76,000 is kind of what I'm speculating. If we have another year like last year, and right now we're fairly consistent with that. We're a little bit under the numbers, but not like this much. It's just instead of 520, we're 490. So it's not a huge difference. So I said let's keep it there. Humane Society, I significantly decreased that. We actually potentially could lower it some more. The attorneys are still supposed to be working on an MOU with Casper for sheltering with them. Looking at what we spent. So 35,000, we budgeted that because we were still kind of new at doing the shelter, animal control stuff. Wasn't really sure what surprises we may have. So we're now 2 years into it. We haven't had these huge surprises. So I significantly decreased it, cut it in half. Could potentially do it some more, but I think we should at least wait till we get Casper stuff figured out. So the vehicle thing is a decrease. And that's our vehicle leases. And prior to when I built this book, it was not budgeted for a new vehicle, but Mayor and Lexi had talked with some extra money. We're paying off one of the Durangos so that we can keep replacing. vehicle. And we'll look to do it towards the fall with the idea that only one lease payment would come in the spring. So moving into that, so we'll keep working on updating and keeping things up to date. That's the baseline of our budget this year. A couple things I came across. So with, we've had one guy retire in December. We had another guy throw in the towel and went over to Public Works. So we've had a couple of positions that we haven't had to pay any salary benefits out to. For, let's see, we got January, February, March, April, May, so 5 months, almost 6 months for Carlton. And then April, May, so 2 months with the other guy. So that's kind of given us a flush number on our end. And so I was talking to Lexi the other day about salaries and the cost of the car, which she told me $173,000. So if I did the math right, from what was budgeted to, to what's remaining of the year in the PD current budget is $264,259-ish, give or take, because it doesn't have all the updated bills and stuff. The one car that we had to put the engine cradle in, it came in less than what they quoted us. It was $1,800 instead of $2,500, plus an alignment, so that saved us a little bit of money. So minusing the 173, I actually took it at 185,000, brought us down to 91,000 left. So I took a relook at the lines that will most likely be affected. So our safety equipment uniforms, I wrote down 1,500 because we have a new guy coming in. There'll be some things I'll need to purchase for him. Looking at the gas line and kind of what we've been averaging, we're going to need about 5,500, give or take, and that was mostly considered May, June. And then the equipment expense or vehicle, I put 2,500 down, but that's going to change. So some of my notes are older. Sorry. Jail fees, I'm speculating at about 12,600 for the remainder of the year. And basically what I did is I took what we've spent, calculated out or divided it by the month, and said, okay, if we're spending this on average per month, then we have these 2 months left. So that's where I came up with some of these numbers. PSCC would be about 13,008. Animal control, I think we need about 1,500, give or take, right now, because we're not having a ton of animals in the hospital and that stuff. And we initially budgeted 35,000. We had when she printed this for me, May 31st, we had 20,000 left. So taking those numbers out of 91,000 leaves roughly about 54,000. So I got to thinking about some of the asks and wants and the different things that I initially talked about the mayor, and I got a whole different perspective since our meeting. I want to talk about that. So we had a really wonderful drug bust that prompted me to relook at our evidence room. So just so you guys can see it, currently we're just using a table. Plastic actually can absorb that kind of stuff, and it's hard. Like even after you Clorox it, you can still have it swab the table. So one of the things I'd like to do with some of the remainder money is like what we did up in Janice's work area, up in records, and put in some cabinets like these, not so much the middle one, but like this, with counters in there, make it more organizational, and then it's easier to clean up through here. So that would be about, well, when I did this project, and this is 2 sets of counters with this, was about 2,500. I'm assuming I can do it pretty close to that because we wouldn't need as much counter in there. But it could bring up to about 3,000-ish. So that's one of the things I think would actually take precedence over some of my other.
Is that type of surface absorbable or?
It's so
Be better than plastic.
it's better than
I was
plastic.
thinking maybe metal would be.
Well, we can consider it. One of the other things that I actually was thinking about, so with the stink of town hall that our drugs created, oh, it was horrendous. I went up to Granger and I bought a roll of 6 mil poly tubing. We already had the heat sealer. And I got to thinking that maybe the simplest thing to do is it absorbs less than normal. Metal's more expensive than this, is what I was thinking about. So I'm not afraid to look at metal, but what I thought is a more conservative thing is get rolls of like the wax paper or whatever. They just pull it out, tear it, process it, throw it away, and then it's not on the surface, period. So I'm not opposed to metal. That was just,
And the fumes and stuff, I mean,
yeah. So
if you got the wood, doesn't that absorb some?
well, the laminate does it, the wood would, but the laminate on top, not as much as a plastic. So in the conservative note, I've ruled out metal with the idea of just buying bigger rolls of the paper. It doesn't mean,
Picture paper or something similar.
yeah, something, just that you can process it and we're,
Parchment.
long term, I mean, if, as long as, until we can ever look at a new facility, but long term wise, the amount of paper we buy may actually pay for the metal long term, but short term and conservative thoughts, I looked at this. So I'm not opposed to it. That's why I went with it. So
Interesting to see that.
yeah, so plus it looks a little more professional, and then you can put the stuff in there. We can label the drawers, things like that. One of the things I also want to do is upgrade my set of law books downstairs. Outside of the traffic manuals that we buy every year, just the complete set is a 2007. Not to say that that's a little old, because a lot of laws have changed. So I'd like to update my set of Wyoming statutes that are down there. The 22s you can't buy yet, but the 21 editions are $450 through LexisNexis. It's not too spendy there. I'm going to ask them when the 22s are out, because I know there's some changes. I prefer 22s, but if they're not going to sell them until after July 1, I can sell for 21s and get the addendums to add in 22. And then this was a tough decision. So I was looking at the money and I'm like, okay, so we've had some incidents where we really could have used our own drone, because calling Casper, nope, they're not available. So back and forth, I talked to Colin about grants. He was a little apprehensive. There's kind of some distinction because fire's doing one thing, which typically fire's different. And I'm like, and it's good that all the fire departments have them, but not law enforcement stuff always is like, hey, let's call the fire department out. It's like missing kids, times of the essence. Shootings. So when we had our house on 5th Street, a CPD officer brought his own drone to use on that particular incident because nobody else in the county had a drone available because they're drinking, drunk. I don't know what was going on. They just weren't available. So Officer Hawes, he's been looking at it. I've often on thought about it. We found one. So like we had the missing child out at River's Edge. And again, I asked for a drone. Leo was there for that. None available. I know the fire department has looked at getting one through a grant, but after running the numbers, I said, we may actually have this in line to do. I had other ideas, but I think it would be more prevalent and more important if we looked at this. About 18,000, it's an all-weather drone, it's waterproof, and it can fly in extreme conditions. Well, most extreme conditions. Not all, but most.
We'll see about that.
So I have two guys who are deeply interested in wanting to do this program. One's actually said, I'll just buy it myself. And I'm like, just stand by. One of the guys I'm fixing to bring back has his own drone, knows how to fly it. So we would have 3 good potential operators. So just for the town of Evansville, when we have kids run off from the school, not that we're going to have any more crazy shootings, let's hope not. But again, like missing people on the river, we're coming into flooding season. I mean, how many times do we have calls that go to the river, and even if they go off in Casper, they're going to potentially float through our community. And this Wilkins potentially has stuff that goes on. So I said, this could be a good asset, not just for us, but also regionally. That's my sales pitch in short as to what I'd like to do with some extra money.
What's the size of it?
didn't bring that information with me because I didn't think anybody'd ask.
What's the engine? Does it have a horn?
The size is a pertinent
So,
question because of FCC licensing and they're
Yes.
required for licensed drive.
yes, Officer Hawes has all that. We can get that stuff taken care of. We'd have to do it just because of the nature of what we do
I was
with
gonna
law
say
enforcement.
for him or us, if we get
Um,
any drone of any size, because it's
it-
used in public service, they have to be
Right.
pilots.
I just know the cost of that license.
He looked and it was like $230 or something.
So it's $230 probably to take the test. I know
Uh,
when I've seen people go out to training, it's been $5,000.
That's not what he came up with. I can double check on it. This particular one that we're looking at, it does have the capabilities for sound. So like if for whatever reason, somebody's having a standoff next to councilman's house, like during our standoff, we had, all they had was the Bearcat. This particular one, you could use it and fly it up to a house, on the backside of a house, and a window, and also use voice commands or search and rescue operations. It could, if they don't get their grant on their end, it works both ways. Any fires that go on with it, we can cross over, and that's one thing that we have a great relationship, unlike years past of other chiefs where they drew a line in the parking lot, and I think they had battle cannons and more flags out here. So,
That's not far from the truth.
so I said, well, I'm going to bring it up because I had other things I was looking at, but I'm like, looking at the community as a whole and, in protection of the community and equipment, we both have these considerations. Is that I think this actually would take more precedence over some of the other stuff. So
Well,
I can ask
yeah, definitely.
Hawes real quick.
They're looking at, I could see that if they're looking at self-training, things like that, just to get the license, $200 to cover the test. They're looking at doing that themselves. But I know if you go out to classes, it's very expensive. The other thing that I was looking at for the
Uh-oh.
Oh,
was due to the drug bust the other day,
ventilation.
ventilation.
Is there any other law here? I see the
No, that's all right.
So that was the other concern I had, is not only the surface, the area, but proper ventilation. Because it basically lit up the whole thing.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
So everything, that smell traveled everywhere. So I felt that it's important for us to look at least some sort of high volume ventilation unit for that evidence room that we would stack out above the building.
Yeah.
Outside.
So the MC doesn't hold it
Yeah.
back in.
But that was another.
It was very
Yeah,
brutal.
it affected everybody. I mean, even the chief said, I found stuff outside, to be honest.
Yeah, all day Monday is, I have
Tuesday.
and Tuesday, so I have an extreme sensitivity to this stuff. So 5 to 10 minutes downstairs, splitting headache, 20 to 30 minutes out there, it'd go away. So I would poke in. I told Janice, I'm like, seriously, like, you need to go outside, keep getting air. I'm like, if you can't do it, she was a trooper. She dealt with it. Cassidy, the investigator's office is back in that area. He was struggling throughout the thing. I mean, it was
real.
It is, of all the years of doing this stuff, that is the worst smelling controlled substance stuff I've ever been around.
And I think that's probably the worst.
It's ever been.
Oh, yeah,
In the building.
Like, we've had some other stuff that it kind of would show up here, but within hours it would dissipate.
Yeah, and it comes to our bathroom, but it was in our offices and it was.
Oh, yeah, it was.
So is it here
I know, I'm
because
like, I
it
don't
takes so
know.
long, because we have to process it, log it before it can be taken to wherever it's supposed to go?
No, so, okay, so in the process, so Leo stops Councilman over here during the traffic stop. it comes out that there's controlled substance, or we do a search warrant on Lexi's house because Janelle rats her out that
She's
she's
growing.
right? All right, so we can, once we get this controlled substance, we have a chain of evidence, and you have to hold on to this stuff until the court proceedings are done, and then there's so much time for potential appeals afterwards. The only time it leaves this building is if it gets sent to the crime lab for chemical analysis testing type stuff, or like, you know, if we're doing DNA or whatever, and or if it gets transferred from one agency to another. So like sometimes, not that drugs typically transfer unless it like PCI, ATF or something, if for some reason then it would transfer. So like if I get a firearm that's stolen out of Casper because Chad really likes it, and I recover it, then eventually it gets transferred that way. But all the controlled substances outside of going to those three places, or if for whatever reason they want to bring it to court for evidence during a case, it stays right here until we can destroy it.
We get it. It's ours.
It's ours.
Can't destroy it.
Until.
Through the court process.
Right, until it's through the court process and out of the potential appeal timeframe, we can destroy it. So, and I don't know. And then, so once that's done, then you have destruction orders. So that's time consuming itself. So as we've been inputting all the evidence into the new PMI evidence software, so it's all getting labeled, it's input in the computer. So you wouldn't do an evidence destruction on just the drugs we take from your car. We typically like to do it in batches because you call up the hospital, you schedule a time for the incineration. And so however long it takes to have enough to justify taking over to be incinerated also adds that time.
Okay. I can get us a cheaper deal with like new cars.
So
On that.
Wow.
Ventilation is- Have we got much information on that, or is that just like a?
Hey,
It was just
you
a-
know,
The other day talking idea.
I would suspect having to go through the basement wall. I mean, we're going to be,
That's gonna be expensive.
it is gonna be expensive.
I wouldn't be surprised if we're not 100,000 plus by the time you put through the wall, your machinery, your negative air flows. I mean, we can get the quotes, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're not 100,000. Yeah, and you know, it weirdly, like new facilities, like, well, I'll use this house on Fifth Street. The insurance company only wants to give them XYZ money. The people they're getting quotes from are saying it's cheaper to tear it down and rebuild it because of the work going through it. So it's a similar thing here. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the money for a new facility, so it'll be more
Yeah.
expensive because the foundational walls, having to cut through that, and I mean so it'll probably be more pricey that way because that's a lot. It's a foundational wall, rebar, and digging the dirt, and
Were you contemplating getting ventilation instead of a drone? Is that what I was thinking of?
Potentially.
Oh, I was like, I don't know if those costs are gonna be similar.
Since I know the cost
Yeah,
are gonna be
they're-
a lot different, but I was thinking, you know, it's like, if, you said that one was 18,000, right? So
18.5-ish.
18,500-ish or so, but I know I talked to Officer Hawes, and he was saying how that was like the cream of the crop, you know, thermal, all that stuff. I mean, it's the one that was used by the officer, $1,000, and then it won't be the standard right now.
Right. Well,
Then we can work on.
Well, I thought about some of that. It is. So,
Right, that's what-
well, and that's why I actually said, if we're gonna go to the program, I'd rather buy something that's gonna last us a while versus, I mean, $1,000 drone a year, maybe two, I mean, depending on usage, but they're not typically waterproof. They don't fly in extreme weather. And you think about our weather patterns here, we got 7 months of a hurricane, you know, winds and extremeness. And so I actually thought about it because there was another one that he was looking at that was less money. But when you take blizzards, rainstorms, and all the crazy, you know, we're not Yeah, we're not Tampa, Florida, where, oh, yep, it's gonna monsoon from 3 p.m. to 5, so nobody do anything, and then the rest of the time it's sunshine. Here, I mean, it can change so much. And so that's why I looked at that, because I'm like, if we're going to go this direction, let's have everything here. Let's be able to thermal, because again, if they don't get the grant, it works both ways. And
Yeah, I would, myself, I like the drone idea, I like the thing one because it is a all-in-one and it can be utilized for a lot of things, especially search and rescues, and even the fire department could probably use it right now for others, for
Right.
a lot of things, but, I was thinking, like, we're gonna dip into the possibility of trying to figure out some ventilation and go cheaper now and then next year.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could
I
do
know,
a
it's
grant for your guys' drone too, or?
well,
For equipment for the ventilation.
is there a possibility? Yes, there is a possibility. But like the grant, you put in for the grant, there's this waiting time frame. Like we know we have some funds now, but in 6 or 7 months when they do the grant stuff and we get denied, well, then that we don't have those funds. And I talked to Colin. There was a little tension because, like, I have no idea that the fire departments all want to have the same drones and they all want to do their own. Well, that's fire department. They do their thing, and the applications they use and what we use. And it's like I get that, but sometimes you need different technologies in different things. Not so because if everybody buys the same drone, I mean, take a cell phone. I mean, in a year this thing's gonna be outdated, and I just got it. So that's why I said, well, let's look at something we know that is going to sustain it for a while. I mean, granted, 2 years there'll be newer, better drones, but this particular one, it will survive our climates. It has pretty much everything that either our departments can use, all encompassing. And I would hate to buy a $1,000 drone and then the day we need it, it's 60-mile-an-hour winds and we can't fly it. Or we need thermal, 3.5. I'll take our missing kid. So we had 3.5 hour search. 2.5 hours that is dark, cold weather. And a cheaper drone doesn't necessarily have those thermals. Where the thermal, and Leo was out there, he was shivering with me at command. So that thermal will be more applicable when we have these incidents than the cheaper ones that don't have that stuff. When you think about life-saving type searches and stuff, again, that's why I said yes, more expensive, but the end payout is greater.
Which is reasonable. That's why I say I like that idea. Now, is it possible for we went with their own idea this year that we will work on it in the next year, set up to put on the budget for the next ventilation system for the PD, because if we're going to keep the building for a while, we're definitely going to have to.
Well, the ventilation thing, I think, in my opinion, we'll have to have some structural people probably also be involved. I think it's more than just like, hey, can I get a quote?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be way more time consuming to do, and we should probably start those steps to put it in there. But at the rate of getting supplies and ordering things, I mean, even if we said we could do it today, it wouldn't happen for a while. So I think it would be, so I'm not, I know where you're going with it. I like the idea. I think it's going to take us longer to figure out the ventilation and where we're sitting, because we got 6 weeks left in the budget. 6 weeks
Or
left.
just do really big busts on the next one day so everybody can.
Well, I mean, there was some money seized in this last one. I mean, we'll only see like 10% of maybe $1,500, but I mean, so. I mean, I was going to talk about like bolo wraps and some other stuff because they're less lethal stuff. But as I was weighing it, because this weekend while I was moving rocks in my yard and the weather was so nice, I was thinking about budgets and PD stuff and thinking about today. And I was like, actually, because Colin and I, there was some clashing and I think he misunderstood what I was talking about. And he was going more with fire stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring it up.
Well, I like
So-
the drone idea. I was just trying to, figure out where to go.
But
No, I understand.
out
Do you
of,
have the money in your budget to get it now?
yeah, with having
That's
Carlton,
why this stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, with Carlton being out and Ian being out, I mean, it's given us some,
I'm
flushes.
interested on the costs of like training and things like that too, but no,
It-
I like the idea for the search and rescues for sure, because if you can get out there, because talking to Oz, that's what he said is as soon as you guys got aware that that girl was missing, they could have had that thing up in there.
you're right.
Start looking.
And that's one of the things about this particular drone over the $1,000 one. Okay, this is fun to explain. So the mayor lives here in town. Let's say he's a certified operator. He can actually take control of the drone and launch it from the PD. I'm a controller, he's a controller. So this one will fly up to 55 mile an hour, so it gets there quicker. It's got like a 9 mile an hour or 9 mile radius. So you could fly it. So even though you're here, let's say we had to go out to Hat 6 and he's on scene, you don't necessarily have to be on shift to fly it. You could just show up here, launch it. He can take it over from the scene. And then if we have extra batteries, so we could relay this thing for a pretty big area if needed. So like up north, because they have a couple of these Project Lifesaver kids up north, and they take off wandering. Where we're located, I mean, although it's primarily for our community, it's a huge benefit regionally to this side of the county. You know, like these guys have a wildland fire that they're going to. It would be really easy for, say, the 3 or 4, or however many people we get trained to operate, and they can transfer the control of it between each other in an area.
That's what he was saying. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's not the top, but it's definitely in the top 10 of good drones. And so the capabilities are phenomenal. So. Drones.
So does this mean the 4th of July weekend, Mayor Edwards is gonna launch that drone and be like, hey Thompson, there's kids at blah, blah, blah.
No, doesn't work that way. So like,
It's not what it's used for.
yeah, like, so there's certain criteria, like search and rescue stuff. You don't necessarily need search warrants to do search and rescue type operations. So like if Janelle goes missing on the river because Cliff gets mad and flips her and, I mean, we can, so we can then get up there and start flying. Cause I mean, you take the time to launch a boat, and there's certain portions that, like, yeah, Reshaw Park, we can get up on one side, but then like past the park and down there, you need some way to get in there because you can't drive or hike it. Now, like for law enforcement purposes, you have to do search warrants. So there's certain things that are exempt, you can just use them, and other things you have to have search warrants. And kids shooting off fireworks is one of those, unfortunately.
There's rules.
There are rules. Now, like fires, again, that would be an exempt thing unless it goes into an investigative law enforcement fire investigation thing, because even that then sometimes requires search warrants.
Got it.
Well,
I know I ended up being the longest tonight. I'm sorry.
What's under the picture?
Bowler wraps. Sheriff's office is carrying them. I'll give you a quick history of this. I initially was going to talk about these, but I feel the drone is actually more important for what we do. So we're all familiar with tasers, the electric ride the lightning. The guy that invented bowler wraps was originally part of Taser. There was 2 guys that started this. They had a falling out. They didn't get along. Had a divorce and company. He started bowler wraps. So what this essentially does is instead of a electroshock central nervous system disruption, it shoots out a cord with weights that wraps a person. So like if they're running from you or, incapacitating without the electricity is what it does. They're about $1,100 a piece. The Colorado State Patrol also is carrying these now. One of the things they're finding, they're not new to law enforcement, but they're growing. They came out a couple years ago. I've been kind of watching it. One of the issues that they're great because they don't disrupt. You don't have to deal with hard issues and that kind of stuff. I mean, now granted, you bolo wrap somebody because they're running and fall and hit their head, but that's because they're running from us or whatever.
So in addition to the bolo wrap, they still carry the regular taser.
Correct.
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
bubble wraps are actually less of, less than lethal than the tasers.
Yeah, it's
Basically just say, give
like-
them commands, hey, stop.
Yeah, you could wrap the arms, you can wrap the legs, you could wrap both if you have two people. Colorado Patrol just put a thing out like it takes some training because they sound like a gunshot when they go off, and so that the officers have to like yell bolo, wrap, whatever you choose to use, and then you gotta let everybody else know. Are you guys saying wrap or bolo at the sheriff's office? Because if people aren't familiar with them carrying them, they can think it's a gunshot when it's not. So you definitely have to let everybody know. But it's less evasive than a taser, but we wouldn't stop carrying a taser. It's just a newer, science and things evolve. So as I was looking at there's this potential extra money, I initially was, but I actually feel way stronger about the drone. So, because we chase people regardless.
I don't know how much extra you actually have.
That's just what I was from.
They are.
That's why I came and asked the other day, and maybe I won't, and that's why she's the money person.
I have a little bit, but right now you're at almost 1.4. Budget is 1.55. A little over 100,000 in salaries and everything.
So we're one what? 497.
But we already have those two positions that are gone, so that's where we're using that. Yeah, see?
Well, that's where he was drawing it from.
Yeah.
It was two
Right.
two officers.
I was just going by what she gave me the other day
Right.
with the salaries and paying off the Durango. I mean, if I don't have the money, I don't have the money. It's just when I took what you gave me and looking at this, that's where I was at. Do I smell marijuana? Jesus.
Ventilation.
Like, sorry, I have a nose for
What's in your purse, Mrs. Evans?
What do you smell?
like I got there's residual coming out of the side room, but yeah.
So I agree that the ventilation should be tricky. So what I will do is get a hold of Shane, the engineer, and put his brain to concepts and ideas.
Mhm.
What we're gonna have to do is get this lower company that's been working with Mark because they're the same buildings.
The structural engineer.
the structural
Yeah.
engineering.
Because there may be some options. I mean, we really don't think it's a big hole. And evident from our water leak last year. Holes are capable of being put inside of the building. But the other
Can
thing,
we unplug that?
is I don't know if it's good PVC pipe to make a sewer vent.
Right.
And it costs about the sewer vent. But I think we'd have to explore options, and that's not something we're gonna get into this budget. That's absolutely
Yeah.
correct.
I agree, it's something
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's something we need to
Yeah.
figure
I
out.
think we all agree.
I guess,
Yeah,
it
Yeah,
makes sense to
technically
get
from the technical side.
a better plan.
Yeah, in general.
So I guess, I think the countertop is a no-brainer. Cost of that.
Yeah.
Fix that. Law books also,
3450.
I guess we'll have to see where the money is.
If we just did the drone the books in the top were like 22,000 ish.
So I don't want to do a budget.
And that's,
Right.
that I was like, how close are we gonna cut it?
So
Right.
I guess, can you do a little deeper dive into that? Let us know where we're coming up. I guess, well, I'm not gonna make a decision.
Nope.
What council's thoughts are.
No, I think, it's a good beef on the board. I mean, it's, I like that drone idea, for multiple different reasons.
I as well with having
And
sponsorship.
then, yeah. Do that, we can, spend all the money, do everything that you guys need. If you don't have enough money for the drone, would you then switch over to wanting to do bubble wraps or something else?
Potentially. Bull wraps, 13,000 something. That time you outfit 12 officers.
Lexi,
Ask for anything, Michael.
Law enforcement isn't cheap.
5,000 less.
Yeah, law enforcement isn't cheap, unfortunately.
And with that
Uh,
$13,000, are you including extra inserts, extra wraps?
No,
Oh,
that's just to buy them.
Now,
Because you have the training. I mean, so actually by the time you buy them and bought trainers and extras, honestly, we'd probably be,
No, I'm talking about that one cartridge, once it's spent, it's spent.
yeah, it's done,
yeah.
gone.
How much are extra?
Yeah, they're about the same as a taser cartridge. So, so by the time you do, yeah, 20, okay, so if you do 25 times 2, so training cartridge, so $50 per officer times 12. So you got 600 just for the training cartridges. And then you always want to have some extra on board. So if we did, let's say we did 10, that's 250. So at 13, what did I say, 13,000? Yeah, so we'd be at another 1,200. Would take.
So what do the training cartridges do? Do they not actually?
They wrap. I don't think they, the hooks are,
Yeah, the training ones don't have to actually.
Yeah.
They're like fishing.
The Kamaguchi
Yeah.
hook or what kind of?
they're, so there's,
It's a hook.
yeah, they're weighted, so it's a line with weights about yay long on either end with hooks. And so basically, when they wrap around, then the hooks grab clothing, maybe some skin on either side, and that's what holds it, where the training ones don't, because they don't want to hook you.
Now, on something like that, though, I know it's not the most ideal thing, but happily, instead of equipment, every officer, they have like, 5 of them or so here at the office. Check out every shift.
I thought about that. It does.
You're
But-
looking into, we'll buy some now, we
Yeah,
can buy some.
Yeah, I mean, there's that potential, like things happen, shift changes, you grab them, do you not? We did the same thing with Stop Sticks for a little bit. Half the time they were grabbing them and then they're frustrated trying to get it in the car when things came up. So I'm like, part of me, I mean, I get it, it saves some money, but part of me says, just do it in
I'm
one.
just thinking,
It's-
spend all the money that you have extra, but you don't have it.
Yeah, so.
Buy what you can now.
It-
Right, work towards
It-
it maybe next year.
Yeah, and they're a new enough thing in law enforcement that I like the concept. They're growing. I mean, we don't really have any case law out yet, so things could change just with case law in itself. So it was more of a wish than a want or a need. I think at the end, the Flying Bird has a better use for us over these because, I mean, everybody knows if they run from us, we're going to chase them until their wheels fall off or chase them down. I mean, so it's a less evasive thing, but again, no case law. I mean, we could buy them today. In 6 months, there can be a case law that says, nope. And then we just spent money on something that's, I mean, there's 4 agencies in the state. I think you guys, Cheyenne, Teton, or Jackson. I think there's only 4 in the state. Colorado, I mean, they're growing.
But they're brand new.
Yeah,
They are, man.
they're only a couple of years out, like 3 years now. Yeah. So I tend to not necessarily always, like I see the purpose, but I also say there's potential until there's some case law that you could screw up and have liabilities. So for us, yes, it would be okay, but I would rather avoid the liability if I can get things that are more sensible.
Well, I'm all, like, I said, I'm on board with Bert, but, as long as we, as long as. it
Right.
falls underneath the budget,
Yeah.
That's definitely number one priority, it sounds like, and,
Yeah.
Looking at that myself, it's number one, but, all about
Well,
Lexi.
Yeah, it's all about Lexi now.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Number
It's all
girl.
about- It's all about what she is.
And not only that, it to some degree, it would go towards retention of personnel as well. Yeah, it's specialties. I mean, a lot of them have, kind of the chip on the shoulder now because they get to chase people and do things that other agencies can't. So that's one thing. So having that thing here, weirdly, ooh, we got something y'all don't. And, we relatively, I mean, because of our response times, snickering back here. But I mean,
We got cool toys coming
right.
for us.
right. But like, I mean,
He's not totally wrong though, when you give employees a tool that
right.
a neighbor doesn't have, it keeps them. They like
Right,
that.
it does. Like we put armor in our driver door. Nobody else in the county is putting Angel armor into at least the driver door. So, and you think like, our craziness on Fifth Street. I mean, 3 of our units there had armor, or you at least have that in there. So the officers, and you look at like, nobody wants to be a cop anymore. So when you can incorporate little tools like this to protect them, the community, etc. I don't know, it's a mental thing. They like it. And, most time our agency, look at the heart attack dude. I mean, like quick, River's Edge, like, man, you guys are here like within minutes. I mean, we're able to respond much quicker, not just within our own community, but even if, Casper has people missing, the sheriff's, anything within a couple miles of our perimeter, we're able to be there within minutes, so we can help our neighbors out with it.
She's full of laughs.
That's my spill.
She wants some of those too. And I said, one time, I was quickly corrected.
Tools for the job.
Tools for the job. Tools are great. As long as- And that's exactly it. And the biggest thing I hear from everybody is not, I need more tools. It's, I
Hey.
need more pay. So that's where my. Depending on how we have it, my brain starts thinking and going along really outside the box type stuff here. But if I ask you this question and you answer it how it works, then I have a whole nother set of questions. Because my first thought is all right, well, if we don't have quite enough money, but we want this to go in there, it can be encumbered with funds and extra to go towards next year, but you would have to be able to pull those out of existing line items. And then if you tell me, yes, we can do that, then I'm gonna say, well, then why are these numbers the way they are? If there's money to be pulled. So that's a marked question.
Right. Animal control is the only line.
But I agree with your assessment there, that right now that's, although I think I went over the numbers from the proposal meeting, and I think we might be substantially underneath those numbers. Maybe go from our historical fees. A whole lot. 75%. When I did my calculations. So there is potential there. But I guess let's dig into that.
I agree. But of course, that's. Yeah, I mean, I want to roll the dice and get on the wrong side of it.
We're definitely good on the other two.
Yes, I think that would be easy. We can do the other two, not the ones, just seeing where we're at.
How much was the overtime?
I'm speculating about $3,000.
At the most.
Yeah, like,
Well, but
I-
you definitely- so.
yeah, that's kind of a,
That's okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's.
I'll run up to Menards because that's where I got the last set from. I'm assuming some of it's more, but because I'm not doing as long of expanses, that may keep it about the same.
Because the big unknown costs I see here are really those, GLPs and PSCs.
Mhm.
I mean, 'cause those, we don't know. Yeah, but
Yeah,
the fuels, even though it's higher, it's predictive. The
Yeah.
jail and the PSCC fees seem to fluctuate so much.
Yeah.
yeah,
They
it's,
go like
Jail
this,
fees,
all the time.
More everywhere, I think it was February.
yeah.
Those are my own concerns, because I mean, the salaries, I can pick that based on
Right.
past to kind of get it there, but
I mean, the other-
maybe unknowns like PSCC, jail fees, and probably then.
The other thing we can do out there is, to me, not. Because originally in the budget this year was no vehicle. So that's why when we talked, I just really wasn't comfortable with that because it's been on such a good rolling schedule.
Right.
To keep things ahead, I think if we spend 1 year and don't replace something, we're gonna get behind it.
Right.
Yeah, and I appreciate you getting into that rotation because those old cars, whew,
Oh, yeah.
smoking it. I mean, it's somebody who has new
I mean,
cars, every 2 years.
The Chargers ended up being a little more maintenance spendy than I initially thought. But yeah, lesson learned. I mean, they're, like Highway Patrol runs them, like a lot of people run them, but I didn't necessarily equate highway versus, and I don't know if it's, they were in Salt Lake versus here. I mean, if they went from 2,800 feet in elevation, they're rebelling because they're at 58. I don't know. I mean,
Like the highway things.
Yeah, it-
Highway patrol, higher speeds all the time.
Yeah, they keep 'em-
Versus in town and.
right.
Stop and go.
And so, like, now, I had a couple guys say, we'd really like Fords. I'm like, yeah, well, they're $7,000 more. So you like that I put armor in there and have good lighting and, and this stuff, I can tell you right now, if I looked at Fords, then some of that's go away. And then they go,
And I think the safety component with it is.
right. And, because people are driving even worse and they're only going to get worse. So I like the safety component because if we're not getting our cars ran into because we're well lit and safety, then we have less repair costs for crashes. Because, of course, I would never say let's fix a car that's been totaled, but
Let's not poke there.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
one,
We get rid of that here.
yeah. So
At
51.
least we don't have to look at it anymore.
Yeah, 51 out here is the one that'll be the one that goes away. Then that only leaves us with one of the Fords with the internally built water pump issue. This one's using some antifreeze, but it's not dripping. You can smell it. You just can't see where it's going. So that's on task away. The next cycle would be Chargers. We can carry over those light bars and probably siren controls because those are new enough and they're plenty bright. So as we roll those ones out, most of the lighting should be able to carry over. So we shave off probably $5,000-ish just in that system. But then we'd still have to do Satina cages and consoles and whatever. So at least it'd be a little less money. So that's the one thing we do get out of the Chargers. We can have a little savings. And then by the time those light bars are rolled over, well, after the second vehicle, they'll probably be outdated to whatever the technology is in another 5 or 8 years. So
Remind me what registration
training.
Oh,
Registrations is training. So that's your, we'll have a good chance somebody's going to go to the academy. So Dudley's coming back, so we don't have that. But anybody that goes to the academy, that's $3,500 to the agency. And then because you have a training requirement. So you have, like I've got Ben down in Colorado tomorrow for evidence custodian class. He's going to take that over. So any of those extra trainings, that's where that line comes out of. That is definitely a line we don't want to mess with.
Well, I was trying to come up with your, the increased subscriptions that you wanted, but that's not enough money to make it. I was looking at, all right, well, if we get made some towards this, what could say, all right, well, if things don't go well, these other components would have to be whacked. Because looking at the budget, okay, so that's 90.
it's just regular, that's not overtime, that's not retirement. That's just straight.
Because what we're looking at here with your current spend and then your payroll, these 50 grand.
50 grand.
Yeah, but that's not caught up with the PSCC advance.
So what did I say? It's
So those, 1,000 grand and more. Well, if I remember from the last bill, I said,
50, would you say
That gets
50?
split out.
oh, that's because there's multiple people on there. I don't, I just see the end number, I don't see who goes.
Yeah,
into
it's from 8.
So it's about 15,000.
Jail fees is,
We're trying.
You're close.
It's
know.
close, it is close. And
You even have him just.
Yeah, I'm really close. So, all right. So registrations currently in current budget, actually.
A1 and B1.
and that's why I asked. You're well under
Like-
currently.
So-
that's why I asked.
Yeah, I was thinking next year, not current year. So in current year, in 6 weeks, so we're gonna have, so Will and I are going, not this week, but the next week to Cheyenne for a,
Next week.
25th, 6th, and 7th. Yeah. Right, that's why I'm,
Off of what we just said, yeah.
right, so, but I've already, I think you already have that bill. Didn't I already give you a bill because I paid for that online? The background and hiring investigation class a month ago. So the only thing that, so we got bins, so I gave you an invoice for ICP or PATCA, whatever, for evidence. I already gave you that invoice. So as far as current registrations, so you said there's 8,100 in there?
But it doesn't matter. I mean, we're looking at the overall number. So we're looking at the bottom line.
Oh, bottom line, yeah.
So it doesn't make a difference. I mean, actually, that's less good because you're gonna have lodging and meals and entertainment that's still gonna come out of that.
Yes, we
It's like
carry them long.
$1,200.
Extra, make them amendments.
Yeah, I know, but we're dealing with such a close number. We're just literally.
Yeah.
is what we're doing. It's the problem.
Yeah.
ESCC will tell you
Of course.
one more bill, and this one, last one was 8361.
It's at 13.8. But that, when I wrote that in, that was a while ago, so.
I see your logs.
How close?
I'm gonna bet we're gonna be on a positive about 4 grand. If there's no other big things coming out of the current year, then it just.
That likes to be on the bill there.
Yeah.
Because what did the cradle come in at?
1,800 and like,
Must be that fuel for the rest of the year.
so when I put this in, I was figuring 5,500 for 2 months, May, June.
Yeah.
But for gas, but if we've only got 6, we've been running what, 2,200 a month?
Well, you know, something we need to factor in, Janice is leaving and then you take vacation and get that out.
Yeah, after 6 times.
When you get close, there's always those little things.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I
Yes,
just
I'm
thought-
with that, that's gonna be substantial.
Yeah. She doesn't
I
really,
remember looking at the time,
yeah, she doesn't really take a ton of time.
So it doesn't seem like one that really uses it.
but we'll have to pay out half of her sick time.
Shit.
I think we might have just popped your bubble.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might have, that's probably gonna put us over. That $4 grand I was saying we had the positive, probably just lost it.
That might,
Luckily, she remembered it though.
that might mean cabinets and books are out too.
I think we'll be okay there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was figuring that, just off the top of my head, I figured what we have left, and then looking at where we're at currently, the salaries and everything else.
Yeah.
So Janice has 37 hours of vacation time. But she's got 180 hours of sick time, and she gets half of that.
Yeah.
So she'll have 90 plus 37.
Yeah.
27 hours
At her hourly rate.
at $20.91 an hour.
Yes, for
Plus the
retirement.
benefit, well, I don't have to pay retirement on the vacation and sick time.
Okay.
Health and taxes.
2091. So that's $2,655.
That's-
Plus taxes.
So,
that'd be a huge amount.
yeah, so 127 hours times 2091, 2,655. And then roughly what,
What
20
about 3,500?
taxes and stuff?
Workers' comp and
Well, 28%, that's $743. I think it's 28.5%.
No,
He was adding-
you're figuring federal withholding.
Oh, yeah,
See, we don't
We
pay
don't
that,
pay
that
that.
comes out of theirs.
that's right, never mind.
I was like, what? What are you doing there?
I'm coming up with like probably $4 grand.
Yeah.
Where I'm coming at.
You said
I
there
know.
was $4 grand left.
I did,
Yeah.
that's why, yes, sir, that's, I said
Yeah.
we'd be, eat that $4 grand, that's exactly what I said, where was gonna happen. I mean, it's still basically where I was getting kind of comfortable at saying we're gonna have some wiggle room. There is zero wiggle room.
Yeah.
Here. And so the only way, I think, depending on how you get closer with numbers, because I'm assuming this is a quick invoice thing.
Yeah, that's, I was looking at end of the year. Yeah,
Because I'm almost
Yeah.
thinking this, that you'd have to span the year.
yeah.
I mean, even if you get 75% of it in this year, but you gotta find.
Yeah.
I think is where the numbers are looking to me, to be honest.
Save more money during the year.
I tried.
Well, so.
I
we all-
tried.
More foot patrol.
Right?
Let's save a little money in gas.
Well,
I had to give you a hard
I know.
time for a second.
Well, two of them were like,
Bicycles.
well, two of them wanted to be motor cops. Like, get motorcycles, save fuel.
Bicycles, I think.
Yeah.
Bicycles.
We used
That
to
was-
have a bicycle.
We still got it downstairs. Yeah.
You can tell, we'll get the,
Yeah.
we'll get all this other stuff. and
Yeah.
just get ride
Yeah.
bicycles.
Rock paper scissors for who rides the bike.
I
Well.
just want to hear and go,
I think the cabinets and stuff is gonna easily be done.
Okay.
I'm a little
Well,
Just my best estimate.
I suspect we'll know 1st of June.
I suspect you're right. So we'll have a pretty close.
Yeah, we'll have a better picture of June.
Well, like I said, it's one of those
June
things
2nd?
I mean, I'm betting we can have an invoice within 2 hours.
We'll give you that first week.
Typically, yeah.
Yeah, so-
Well, I was gonna say, because you still have some wiggle room to figure out if it'll fit or not, because we saw 6 weeks of the year.
Right, and
Well,
if
as
we,
long as we pay it by the 27th of June.
yeah, if we get closer to that point, and
So if
we'll-
we get to the 20th of June and it's like, okay, Michael, you're doing good.
right, because then we're
Yeah.
gonna have a better idea of where the PSCC and jail fees are, which are the unknowns. Get the guys on, I agree,
Tell them it costs
mid-grade, not big grade.
I've had that discussion with them. I also had a discussion with them about fueling less at Hat 6, like once a month versus weekly, whatever. So it's center up here.
But I'd say let's get the other components in, so we got that all going in.
Well, I'll facilitate those two by tomorrow afternoon. I got interviews in the morning, so
Car wash or something, to get the drone.
yeah, yeah.
How big?
Well, it's all good.
Go to businesses and be like, hey, does anybody want to go into your
Yeah,
We'll see where we are. I'm,
yeah.
I'll be honest,
This gives me a little panic attack when you start talking.
yeah. we'll get
Sorry.
closer. I mean,
Yeah, no,
I'm fairly confident unless stuff blows up that we do have
right.
wiggle room on.
Well, I took the last numbers you gave me, so things changed. So by those numbers, it looked good. Oh, oh,
Now you see.
but yeah, no, it changes, things happen.
And we put some money, don't spend it all, it's not gonna move around.
Yeah.
But it's the end of my house.
In about a month.
I think it's gonna be, I'll bet you know it's like $2,000. So one way or the other. So I think it's.
Hopefully it's $2,000 positive.
Well, unless we have some significantly large cases, the only overtime that I've authorized was for the Trump weekend thing for some extra patrol, which shouldn't be a ton, because I think, I mean, graduation, Trump,
Soccer
Memorial Day, soccer,
Bad weekend.
yeah, UMF. I mean, so we're gonna have a ton of people running around. So,
Well, see how we end up.
yeah.
See where we're at.
So I think I've only got 2 guys besides myself who said they're willing to work extra anyways. Norm, and then was it McFall? I think it was McFall or Hawes. I can't remember. One of those 2, and then maybe me if I come up. So
Every little dollar saved.
yeah,
Budget your bunk beds in your office, being those work.
But, hey, legitimately though, we also need to answer the questions on is the $200.
I will get that.
So.
Yeah,
I know for a fact,
yeah. I will have that answer Wednesday.
because that's something we need to calculate.
Yeah. Yep, I will have that answer Wednesday.
All right.
Next.
So imagine
Are you over it?
that. Actually, that was even light compared to what it was.
Yeah, generally.
See,
The
we're
drone
still-
thing was a
we're-
little longer
We're
than
still
normal.
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed because we still know this is way faster and better than now.
This used to be like 3 days up to midnight every night.
We need to
So-
determine how many shovels.
Yeah, I mean, we're only here 2 hours and 15 minutes right now.
We'll knock the rest out real quick.
Yeah.
Town treasurer? I just picked whatever the top was.
I know that's.
You're in the hot seat now.
Right? Do you have any questions? Mine is pretty straightforward and not much can be changed.
I see in here that you're getting, 10-ply, toilet paper. We can cut this down to 2-ply, which in count will save us $18,000. Get the drone.
Probably hear that upstairs.
All right, besides toilet paper, do we have any questions? Most of these things,
Emergency management, that's for
and that one is
nothing you can put there. For the telephone. And, legal,
Nope, this is the order we're gonna
I'm
go
like,
in.
I'm in charge. Didn't you turn it over to me? Legal, that's for our attorney. What was the current bill we discussed? 51,000, I think. So yes, by the end of this year, we're gonna be close to that amount. We paid
We
a whole lot
had
of money.
originally budgeted 120 and I asked that to be increased. Because I didn't think we were going to hit the mark and
We just got billed for.
there's stuff
3-4
coming
months.
that's
Mhm.
is what it is.
Yeah.
I think she almost just had a minor.
Yeah, I
Panic
almost had a
attack.
myocardial infarction. That's a lot. Wow.
A lot of money. That includes, when they come out here for court,
Council
every Monday and
meetings,
then
phone
council
calls.
meetings.
Emails.
They charge.
Every time we hit them up.
You send them an email,
Okay, all new
We keep 'em
emails and
busy.
stuff will come through me,
and then we send it in one email.
and then I will decide if it is something pertinent that needs to go over there. Goodness.
And then planning is, WLC. Engineering
They
planning.
have like little 15-minute clickers they use to build timing.
So a lot of them will be there.
Yep.
Yeah, those are my budgets. I spend a whole lot of money,
All in one spot.
right?
So I guess, any questions on those?
Unavoidable. I don't. Set the prices.
Well, and we just got notice of fee increase.
Yeah.
Because
Aaliyah.
we're getting Aaliyah at the cut rate. And now
She done made pot, huh? So.
she's at the rookie rate, 225 an hour.
Because we utilize her,
They're gonna
she's
respond
at a
better to our
cheaper
emails
rate
and
now.
phone calls? Probably not.
No, before they respond to more money it costs.
So how
Yeah, every time you
how
type
will
a
this
reply,
number
you want more,
adjust
They charge us more.
with
I
the
know.
other
I
thing?
have stuff
that
I've
we have
emailed
going
them
on.
and I don't get responses.
Saving the time.
Is that close to our?
Well, I get that, but like, sometimes you need a response.
I get it.
So luckily we don't.
They must carry those things in their pockets, you know? I
did work for an attorney once, and they made me install a thing on the phone system to track every minute they're on. Oh, shit.
Wow.
Put out video right now so they can do that.
Wow. Yeah.
That doesn't work though, because
Oh,
how
yeah.
else would you
Yeah.
They
gain
bill
a
us,
bunch of
the lawyer
tracking
is-
every 15 months of your day?
lawyer I was working for billed on 15 increments. So,
What lawyers for their business do.
She's got a boyfriend now. That's why she needs more money.
All right, moving on to Nels budget. Where would you like to start?
Wherever you want to start.
Mayor council.
Mayor council.
That's after you guys.
And we, I thought we talked about $1,000. Yeah. What was it? Oh, the laptop.
I knew I was missing $1,000. Yeah, so that'll be putting you.
Yeah. For Chad. Chad is working on Leo's old laptop. And,
Yeah, so we're gonna throw $1,000.
yeah. Guys, looking at that like. Should we have that conversation?
It was like, you know, running up. Gyms.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm used to it.
So in the past, I know Janelle and I talked about this, we really didn't go anywhere with it. There was mention of the wages the council makes. I didn't bring that up. That's something you guys want to talk about. We could. I know in the past also we've talked about the state's insurance, retirement. Because most elected officials throughout the state participate in the Wyoming State retirement, we don't. So just so you all know, those, we didn't put any of that on there, it's something y'all want to explore. Yeah. Just basically size
If wages was something that he was interested in, it's something that has to be voted in by ordinance, and it would not go into effect. After the ordinance is passed, it goes into effect for that seat's next
Person.
elected.
And that's what I said, that's why we didn't look at it. I mean, nobody
Oh
does
my
this
God.
for the pay, so that's why I passed on it, but I don't want.
I appreciate
Yes.
you, I appreciate you.
But down the road,
Yeah.
if it's something that needs to be looked at, because obviously you can't vote yourself into a raise right now, but once there's an election, it can go into effect to set up your,
For the future.
the future of it as well.
I think maybe when, if we grow more, we are gonna be growing more. Obviously, annually. For now, at least, I know myself.
So, just want to throw it out there? That wasn't something we explored.
I appreciate that.
I don't take no hot dogs off my table.
It's not taking any off, it's just not giving you any more.
Hey, and we doing fine.
All right. Next time I've got it. What do you got?
General.
You want to do general government?
That's just next on my list. I mean,
Okay.
I never-
Dues and subscriptions, I've got an extra 20,000 in there, which brought it up to 50,000. 20,000 is for the funding of the 100-year celebration for next year. The repairs and maintenance, I'm holding it status quo, and I'm gonna buy some materials out of this year's budget. In fact, next time you see Ty, if you can have him get a hold of me, I'm not sure he's working again. We've got some of the supports on the rails, especially on the handicap, that are literally gone. And Ty has offered up for overtime, and I've got to figure out how we're gonna work that with your budget. But he has offered up to re-weld the bottoms of the rails on for overtime. And Mark has offered to help up with the concrete work around the building. And so we're thinking with fuel, supplies, overtime, and concrete, that we're gonna be right around 3,000. I did reach out to Salt Creek Welding, and to do 12 of this alone, they want $3,500.
And this also includes them coming in and doing the whole thing.
Yes. repriming.
For the ones going up and the ones going down the stairs?
All of them together. Yeah. The other thing that's gone up this year versus what we had budgeted last year was 1043,530. We have not had to pay for the last year for the link and the assist. And Chad got those numbers the other day, and we're gonna be sitting at about $35,000 for, is it the link? I get them turned around now.
It's the fixed route, yeah.
The fixed route.
The link with the bus system.
Yeah.
So do we have bus stops in Evansville?
Many of them.
Like the post office, community center,
Copper,
Williams.
Copper and Sixth, the post office,
Fourth and Williams.
Yeah, we moved it up, so it's.
Fourth and Williams, North by Miracle. There's quite.
The Aspens.
Yeah.
Aspens.
Up behind
There's lots of bus
Super
stops.
eight. for the Texas Roadhouse area up in there. They come through every hour.
It connects to the rest of the.
We have a bus stop sign?
There's one over in front of what is it, that, the bench out there, the post office?
Yeah, there was like 5 people waiting there this afternoon.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a.
And it goes to Walmart and then connects to the rest of
It took me a while to notice them too, because I
They're not big signs, they're probably,
that's why I was like, oh, yeah, I know about it.
yeah, it's,
You probably saw the shelter at the community center.
they're in the alleyway.
I
Yeah,
forgot about the community.
yeah, I did see
center.
that.
I didn't realize that they were
Oh.
really dealing with that.
And we're putting in 2 brand new shelters over at Aspens.
Well, the-
That's gonna be also for the school.
And the school.
That's what I was just gonna ask, if we were gonna get the thing back, the barn back for the
No, we're gonna put in nice, not a barn, a shelter like.
See-through.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just know that because I've had to hit the next, we used to, but they don't do that anymore.
So those are actually, we work with Casper and part of the grant.
So that's the gist of the, general government. General government's kind of a catch-all. I mean, like if we throw money in the pot for fireworks, it comes out of general government.
This whole building here.
This whole building here comes out of general government.
Insurance went up?
Insurance, property insurance went up about 4.25%.
Can somebody call that a adjuster? Because my house, yeah.
Well, so our insurance,
I was just-
like our liability, our property insurance is in a pool through the Wyoming Association of Risk Management. And so they really try to keep our premiums down. So,
Does anybody got any questions on general government? Town clerk?
Not a whole lot can be done there. There is a current year budget. And the estimated is up, and it's because we're picking up Colin, who writes our grants for us. We're picking up his wages. We're pulling it out of my budget. We're paying him $16 an hour, and he's working about 15
Give or
hours,
take.
give or take a week, working part-time.
These last couple of weeks, because of all the SHSP stuff, he's worked a lot more, but usually he's really, really good about keeping his hours where they need to be.
And he's brought in
A lot of money.
a lot of money.
Somebody really focusing on that stuff.
A lot of money.
I don't know exactly where it's, safety stuff.
Oh,
SHSP?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a state homeland security.
Yep. There you go.
We got Thompson, we need no state homeland.
It's money.
It's money.
Giving us grant.
Oh,
Grant money.
really?
So
Yeah.
last year we got 250 grand for our respirators. It's just-
Oh, that one was a DOJ grant.
Okay, that was DOJ.
Well, can you ask them for
Radios.
$18,000 grant so that
Radios.
I can, well, more than that, but in that, with that money, I'm gonna buy a drone, heat and cooled, censored, record sound.
Well, ironically enough, the fire department jointly with the Natrona County Fire Department have applied for the
Yes.
Well, I know, but when I.
But it isn't 18 grand.
But I want one specifically for Evansville, and the reason why I think that is because I don't want anybody getting greedy, like, we can just use Evansville, they don't need it.
Well, the joint grant that he put in is for two. Mark will have his own investigation drone, but it's not the $18,000 kind that he wants.
Yeah.
It's the same drone that City Fire has. Basically, with the fire departments, we're all trying to get the same drone, so all the operators are on the same platform. The drone he wants is, I don't remember what, do you remember what ours is only 7,000 or 8,000, not 18,000.
Yeah, there's, doesn't
Yours isn't
have,
waterproof.
yeah. There's different capacities that
Right.
I have, the one I'm looking at versus what theirs has.
Yeah.
And granted, it's a grant, so there's no guarantee they get the grant.
Right. Yeah, we're not guaranteed that drone. Yeah,
Yeah.
September, October is when SHSP will
Yeah.
come.
For like the Homeland
Yeah.
Security grants, we've gotten $25,000 to install
surveillance.
video surveillance.
Radios.
And
At
Yeah.
the water tanks, at the fire station, water plant.
Radios for fire
Tons
employees.
of radios, because they
we
are
have
expensive.
another one in currently for
MDTs,
MDTs.
our
Yeah.
mobile data terminals.
Tough books.
What's more acronyms we can throw out?
Hey, so I have another question. You know your computer in your car?
MDT.
No,
Yes.
I don't, no. Okay, when you take it out of your car, like, let's say you're going into Evansville School for something,
Mhm.
you turn your car off, right?
Not at that particular moment unless they're going to be in there for more than 30 minutes.
Okay,
So, and we wouldn't take the MDT in the school because there's NCI.
Oh, you're gonna, yeah,
Okay, there's
never mind.
there's super
Okay.
sensitive stuff on those particular computers that they have to be secured in those things. So because of the sensitivity of
Only
the-
in our computers, only in Evansville's cars.
you know, Casper has them, Mills has
But
them,
like,
Highway Patrol
like
has
the
them.
SRO takes it, you know, they take everything in.
That's different.
it depends on what the computer has access to.
Yeah, and they have their own offices
Mhm.
that they can secure that stuff in at the school, so they can close the door, nobody has access to it. We don't have it over here.
Right.
So, because that MDT with the information that's on there, I could use all your guys' information. Like, there's a lot of sensitive stuff in there. So so there's some exceptions to my idle time. So if they're on calls, where obviously, like, because there's tons of electronics on in those cars. So in the summer months, if they're gonna be like at school for a little bit, air conditioning, because if it gets heated, it shuts it down. So we want to keep it somewhat cooled. So we'll go from hours, like an hour at the school, to like 30-minute windows, so that we're not just in there. So, yeah. NCIC, Court Beam,
Last one is community center.
Community center.
CJS.
AGB.
I haven't even started on fire acronyms.
Yeah.
There's really not much.
It's about the same.
Yeah, the community center.
$20.
And we had some breakages this year, which threw us a bit over a few items.
And the garbage disposal in office over $2,000.
You know what? We got, that we haven't fixed is the biggest railing system.
Yeah, but we do have, We still have an equipment expense for 2130. I left that in there.
Okay.
Because yeah, the video surveillance needs to be,
That's about what we just got.
yeah, and I don't know, maybe that's something that CP will look at too.
I think we could, because basically we just need to run the camera models and get a new DVR that'll connect those camera models. So I think that's something we can do.
Did you put in for Jan's monitor so she can watch court?
I'm trying to produce just this
Oh.
camera, so we can watch court. And if you guys could get on a rotation every Monday, if you could bring us popcorn. We would really appreciate it. Can you put that in your budget?
No.
Hi, put it in my budget.
Okay, so that's basically for the budget. I have one last item I would like to bring to council's attention. So if you go back to our summary page. So basically where we're currently at is the $310,000 in the black where we're at right now. We approved the $93,000 in capital expenses, which takes us down to $217,848.44. One thing I would like to bring forth to council and request that we approve a 2% pay hike for employees starting July 1st. No, not a
Yeah.
2% increase in your
Was that in addition to the one we?
Yes, yes, in addition to the one we did in October, it's really we all know it doesn't match what we're seeing in inflation, but it's another step towards that and to help the employees. The total cost of that is $67,000. So that would still leave us at $150,000 left over in the black, which we currently have a classification and compensation study out right now. We're accepting proposals for that, which will be going on over the next 6 to 8 months. So I fully anticipate that that's going to find some glaring issues which we're going to have to deal with. So basically that leaves us this $150,000 if we add a 2% in to address any issues that show up in that classification compensation study. So if there's no objections from council, I'd like to have that.
No, and that would go start to like, yes.
Yeah, I don't feel that that's going to put anybody over what our classification compensation is gonna have, but I feel that we need to give the employees some meat to their meat of what's going on, so all this is gonna do is give us a step.
I've always told the preach about is the extra.
Everybody's okay with that?
And I did, of course, yeah, on the state statutes as far as adoption of the budget. Did not, he was working on the MOU for Country Club, and that would be next. So I reminded him that we was having a work session tonight to talk about budgets, and that we really need to know because there's a good possibility we won't have a council meeting on the 23rd of May. And if we don't, we'll have to do a special meeting if we have to pass this or budget ordinance.
So everybody just
Three readings.
traditionally, in the past, for some reason, the town of Liverpool has adopted their budget by ordinance by law, which requires 3 readings. In readings, Illinois and other state statutes, because most, I don't know most, but many other municipalities adopt their budgets by resolution, which is a single reading. And state statute does mention either by ordinance or resolution. But we wanted to reach out to the attorney. So you get a legal opinion on that. It was safe for us to make the transition of that, which it sounds like we probably won't have a quorum on 23rd. So if we do it by ordinance, we have to have a special meeting to get our 3 readings in. Or if we're able to adjust the resolution, we can just do it in our public meeting too. So
It has to be passed before it's voted on.
that's what it really goes.
a resolution would simplify it.
It would, and
All of it.
it,
We have to
I don't
add
know
it into
what-
our ordinances.
yeah, the necessity why it needs to be law. And we are moving to taking our ordinances online. So the more things we do, the more updates that's gotta be changed and stuff with our municipal code. And I'll be honest, I just don't understand the necessity. But we will look for that legal opinion and depending on how that comes up, my guess is probably one way or the other, we will be cancel our computer.
So at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you have to cancel the 23rd meeting and we can do the budget by resolution, you won't have to make that meeting up, or you wouldn't have to have a special meeting. The special meeting would just have to happen if we have to have the 3 readings for the budget. Gotcha. Okay.
Just so we can do a reading on the ordinance.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Stacia. Welcome to
And
being a
thank you
council
for
member.
doing such a great job. We'll have to
Easy.
wait on our-
Easy peasy. Just like that. Boom. You get to learn about MDTs, SHASP. I mean,
I know what a MDT is. I'm already a foster parent.
you know what an MDT is?
I know, I was like, MDT, yeah. I'll take disciplinary.
I know what an
Mobile-
IEP is.
Mobile